Hello everyone! Thank you for watching this next video as part of the Taste of Farming series. My name is Ashley Edwards. I am a commercial horticulture agent in Carroll, Grayson, and Wythe counties, and today I'm going to be giving an introduction to small fruit production. The term small fruit includes many of the berry crops such as blackberries, blueberries, and strawberries, among others, but I'm not going to be covering strawberries today since Roy will be covering that crop in another talk. Today I'm just going to focus on caneberries and blueberries. When you are considering growing small fruit as a potential crop, especially when you're comparing it to the tree fruit crops, small fruit are more compact and they will come into production fairly quickly. But it is important to know that berry fruit may take some different management skills than what you're used to if you've never produced a berry crop before. Additionally, they have a really short shelf life from harvest to sale, so there are some important considerations there as well. So first, I'll mention site selection. Full sun is preferred for fruit crops. Soil needs to be well drained, but still have good water holding capacity. Soil pH is a very important consideration. For most berries, a range of 6.2 to 6.8 is preferred. However, blueberries require a much lower pH of 4 to 5, preferably 4.8. And we'll go into that a little bit later when we talk about blueberries. So you want to locate your planting in full sun if possible and avoid frost pockets. Frost pockets are areas that collect cold air under still conditions. As you can see in this photo, the frost pockets have kind of settled in the low spots and in areas where it's getting trapped between trees and other landscapes. So it's helpful to consider adding organic matter too before planting. It may take a few years when you're adding organic matter before you really see the benefit and the changes there, so the pre-planting is really important. Also want to note that you want to select a site where you have the potential to irrigate your crop if possible. Drip irrigation is highly recommended for small fruits. So next, we're going to talk about the market potential. You really want to consider your market before you ever get started with any crop. So who do you want to sell to? How does your current system and infrastructure fit into that desired market? So for instance, do you have the labor force to harvest and sell to retailers or to wholesale markets? Do you have the storage, cooling, and transportation capabilities that are necessary to really get into this market? Or is a pick your own operation more your style, where your customers will do the harvesting for you and you're not really having to store any of your produce? Just some considerations to take into account here. All right, so now we're going to dive into caneberries. These are our blackberries and our raspberries. So caneberries are grouped by 4 plant characteristics. The growth habit determines the need for a trellis system. So with this, we're talking about if the growth habit is trailing, if it's semi-erect, or completely erect. Semi-erect needs somewhat of a trellis system, as you can kind of see from this middle photo how partially it's erect, but maybe you can see how you could benefit from those side branches being held up. Erect don't need a trellis system necessarily, but then the trailing ones require one, a wire or a trellis system somehow to hold that canopy up. We will go into the fruiting habits a little bit deeper in the coming slides, but there are 2 fruiting habits, primocane or florocane. And then also if the berries are thorny or thornless, if the plants are. And then raspberry plants actually have different colors and are grouped accordingly. Most of the productive traditional blackberries that taste the best and are the most productive are the semi-erect ones. These are the fairly expensive to grow because of the amount of pruning that's required, but they are generally a lot more productive in general. So caneberries, I already mentioned there are 2 different fruiting types, primocane and florocane. The caneberries are perennial shrubs. So as a perennial plant, the canes are biennial meaning they have a 2-year life cycle, and new canes grow from the buds at the crown each year. So most blackberries and some raspberry cultivars are floricane fruiting, and this means that they will bear a crop in the 2nd year of life and then in subsequent years. So in floricane fruiting varieties, the first year the primocanes grow out and branch out, but they remain vegetative. In the 2nd year, they are called floricanes or flowering canes, and the lateral branches grow from the buds. So the fruit are born from these laterals. Primocane fruiting varieties or cultivars produce fruit on the tips of the first year's growth in late summer and fall, and then this portion of the cane will then die. For this type of crop, the canes are then mowed to the ground in the winter, so you can actually get 2 crops per year for these primocane types. All caneberries are shallow rooted, but there are lots of types and lots of different varieties. The pictures that I have here are just kind of showing how you can differentiate between the primocane leaves and the floricane leaves. Primocane leaves are bigger, that deep, bright green, and they also have 5 leaves, where the floricane leaves are the ones that are producing your fruit and your flowers, are 3-leaved, and you can actually see the fruit starting to develop there. So what is the difference between a black raspberry and a blackberry? Well, actually, you can look at this bottom picture and see that raspberries, or black raspberries, have no core. They are hollow. The blackberries have a solid core, as you see right in the center. Blackberries can either be thornless or thorny, and that's something you want to consider as you decide which type you want to grow. If you are interested in a pick your own operation or just one where you and your workers don't want to get scratched all the time, you might want to consider a thornless one. But there are many tasty and well-growing thorny varieties as well. Raspberry types are based on berry color, and there are all different colors ranging from black to red to gold. The production and quality of raspberries can really be improved with trellising. And a thing to note if you're doing both blackberries and raspberries are that separate plantings of red and black raspberries, separating those is really important because black raspberries are more susceptible to viral diseases, and so you want to have that kind of that buffer between the two so they're not catching diseases off of the red raspberries. So on this slide, we will discuss the considerations when planting caneberries. Caneberries are planted from a dormant bare root plant. I have a picture there in the center that kind of shows what one would look like as you get it from a nursery. At planting, you want to set those close to or about 1 inch lower than nursery level. You can tell based on where the soil level was on the stem. And then after planting, you can cut that stem 3 to 4 inches from the ground. Early spring plantings are acceptable in most regions, but fall planting has been shown to really help develop a good root system. As far as spacing of our different caneberry types, with blackberries, we're looking at about 10 to 12 feet between rows. You want to have plenty of room for you to get in there and get equipment through. If it's an erect type, you want your plants 2 to 4 feet apart in the row. If your type is semi-erect or trailing, you want to give a little more space there with 4 to 8 feet between plants. Now for raspberry spacing, we're looking at also 8 to 15 feet rows, depending on what kind of equipment you have. And then the primocane fruiting types 2 to 3 feet apart in row, and floricane 3 to 4 feet apart in row. So some considerations with soil management. Caneberries grow best with 3% or more organic matter. So that's something you need to consider well before planting. Mulch should be applied soon after setting the plants and then maintained throughout the life of the planting. Some recommended types of mulch are just hardwood or softwood bark, about 5 to 6 inches deep. When it comes to fertilization, you really want to manage for fertility ahead of time. So this is 6 months to a year in advance. This is because a lot of our substances like lime or something that we're trying to do to alter pH and things really takes a long time to get in there and get active. So also knowing the soil organic matter ahead of time is really helpful for determining the amount of nitrogen that you need to apply. And on fertile soils where good mulch is maintained, it's usually unnecessary to make an application of fertilizer at planting. You just really want to pay close attention to your soil test recommendations to know how much additional fertilizer you should add from season to season. And then soil testing is available through Virginia Tech, and you can contact your local extension office to get the kits and the paperwork for that. So with irrigating caneberries or any berries, drip irrigation is really preferred for a number of reasons. This applies the water directly to the root system where it needs to be. It conserves water, can lessen the incidence of foliar diseases, lots of reasons. Caneberries need about 1 to 2 inches of water per week throughout the growing season, and then during harvest, that water need goes up to 2 to 3 inches per week. So when it comes to pruning, I'm not going to spend a lot of time discussing pruning in this talk just because it's more than I can cover in the time that was allotted. But I'll go over a few notes here, and I've got some really great reference materials that I've put at the end of this presentation that I encourage you, if you're considering caneberry production or small fruit production in general, to take a look at those. But essentially, pruning is going to be the most time-consuming and the most expensive part of commercial fruit production. The type of pruning that you need to do really depends on the type of berry and its growth habit. So floricane fruiting, you might need to prune several times a year, whereas with primocane fruiting types, you might only prune it once during the winter and just mow the whole thing down. Because the fruiting canes will die once fruiting is completed. So it's important that you prune those out when they're dormant and really retain the best canes that are left. So there, like I said, there are more pruning information that are available for you at the end of this presentation. When it comes to trellising of caneberries, trellis systems can really increase yields. They will support the canopy surface, hold it up, and just allow it for easier picking and everything. Trailing and erect growing blackberries, as well as black and purple raspberries, are going to need support. You can do this by trellises, fences, tying them to stakes. There are lots of different options. And other caneberries can be trained to support, or even with severe pruning, you can kind of convince them to grow as upright, self-supporting plants. This slide will provide us some pictures of some example trellis systems. So you can just take a look here at some different ways that trellises have been used, and there are a lot of information available for you in the Mid-Atlantic Berry Guide on trellising options. So for pollination, most of the commercial varieties of caneberries are self-pollinating. Most varieties are self-fruitful, but it is shown that cross-pollination with pollen from other varieties can improve the fruit weight and shape. With caneberries, we're really looking at honeybees as the key pollinator. All right, now when it comes to production costs, this is a little harder to give you an exact estimation on, just because costs in recent times have gone up on a lot of things. But just for some general guidance, Dr. Raffi at VSU had put together a presentation that I found his estimation of production costs for 1 acre of blackberries. And he goes through kind of the average cost of the plants, the materials, as well as the labor to put that in. And so it's worth taking a look at that resource just to give you some ideas and to help you plan. His estimation at the time of this publication was about a little over $10,000 per acre when it was all said and done. All right, so now we're going to be discussing some of the basics of blueberry production. So with blueberry production, your timeline is going to look a little bit like this. So from planting until your first harvest, you're really looking at a period of 3 years because you're not wanting to harvest those first fruit for a variety of reasons. So until your full commercial harvest, you're actually looking at closer to 5 to 6 years with proper management. But it's important to know that these plants can last you and be productive for you for a really long time if they're well maintained, upwards of 15 years. So here's a little bit of average establishment costs for putting in an acre of blueberries. Again, these numbers are probably going to be different now, but something to kind of help you with your decision making. They can range from $4,500 to $8,500 an acre, including your land prep, plants, labor, irrigation. Just average annual production costs $2,000 to $3,000 an acre. So essentially, it might be around 5 years before you're able to cover those establishment costs. So generally with berry production in general, you're looking at a very high upfront cost. So just something to keep in mind. And there are sample budgets that you can look at and use on your farm that are in the Mid-Atlantic Berry Guide, which I've attached as a reference for you. With blueberry site selection, we want medium textured soils, again with good water holding capacity but well drained. Putting them on a slope that's going to help you with drainage, lessening your likelihood of frost damage, and then disease prevention if you're getting that north facing slope. Our pH is really a critical piece here. Blueberries love a lower pH. Their preferred range is between 4 and 5, and really we like 4.8. And so it's very critical that you get that soil tested well before planting, like 6+ months. That will give you time to get in there and lower that pH with sulfur if you need to. And then also mulching is very critical with blueberries, and sawdust, just old decayed sawdust is a great material for that. So with blueberry species, in general, we have 3 types: the high bush kind, rabbidi, and the low bush, or the wild types, which are the wild low bush kind are really the ones that are grown more commercially up in the northeast part of the country. Here in Virginia, we really are more of the high bush and the rabbidi types, and we'll go into those in a minute. But there are many cultivars or varieties, and you really want to choose these based on your production area, the temperature where you are, and the chilling requirements of the different species, or how long it has to be at a certain temperature before it can bloom. You also want to consider selecting varieties based on your desired harvest window. So are you wanting to harvest all season long? Are you, like if you were looking at a pick your own operation that had bunches of different varieties where you would have a guaranteed crop throughout the season? Or are you mainly looking at a specific harvest window? So those are just some thoughts to consider when choosing which varieties you want to plant. So a little bit about the different types of blueberries. The high bush type are the ones that are the commercially most widely grown in the Mid-Atlantic region. Excuse me. They are a little more winter hardy and less prone to frost damage. And in general, these are more suited for Northern Virginia and the mountain regions. But the rabbidi variety, or the type, are the ones grown mostly in the southern U.S. They are better suited for hotter climates and in general have a lower chilling requirement. But both are successful in Virginia in different areas. So when planting blueberry crops, you are purchasing a 2-year-old bare root or a potted transplant from a reputable nursery. It's just critical that you are getting these transplants from a reputable nursery to make sure you're not bringing in any disease problems or anything like that. Bare root plants can be planted in late winter to early spring during the dormant season. Potted plants can be planted in the spring or the fall. Raised beds are really preferred here just because of drainage and that shallow root system. It just really provides a good growing environment for these plants. You want to have your rows far enough apart for whatever equipment it is that you're using to get through, whether it be a tractor or truck, whatever. So in that 9 to 14 feet range. And then your spacing between plants on average 4 to 8 feet. So again, with irrigation, drip is really the preferred method. Blueberries need 1 inch of water per week. And then, as I've already mentioned before, drip irrigation conserves the moisture. It supplies that adequate water directly to the root system where it's needed, and then really decreases those foliar diseases. A thing to note, though, is if you have the option to do overhead irrigation, that could be used for frost protection. So just a consideration there if you're thinking about putting in some of these high dollar crops, how can you have options to deal with frost? That's really important to consider. So on to pruning. In general, with pruning blueberries, we are wanting to remove any of that small twiggy growth, which is going to allow us to increase our fruit size and just have better fruit quality. So you may have less fruit, but they're going to be better fruit, higher quality, better size, and easier to harvest. We're getting out those decreasingly productive canes and encouraging them to be replaced with new healthy canes. We are wanting to prune toward the end of the dormant season, and here in general that's going to be about in March. This graphic really is just a comparison to show you what a blueberry plant should look like after planting, how it's opened up and less of that small twiggy stuff and lots of room and availability for some nice juicy blueberries. With pollination, rabbit eye types will not self-pollinate. So if that's what you're growing, you need to make sure that you have 2 or more different varieties to pollinate each other. But most of the high bush blueberries will benefit from cross-pollination. So even though they don't have to have it, you can see in this picture how much more benefit they're going to gain from being pollinated. So you're getting bigger, better berries, increased seeds per berry, fruit size is increased, higher weight, and in general, a better yield. The use of several cultivars can allow for plants to pollinate each other, and as well as extend that picking season, as I mentioned, so you're having fruit coming in consistently throughout the year. With the pests that you might run into with blueberries or small fruit in general, birds are actually going to be your #1 pest. So some different folks have had to get kind of creative with how they have dealt with that. So that could range from just covering all their blueberries with plastic nets or fabric cloth, hanging up wires that shake in the wind and scare the birds away, aluminum pans, like all sorts of different methods. As far as insects, really we are kind of concerned now with a newer pest known as the spotted winged Drosophila, which is a small little fly, as you can see on that berry, and they can cause, when they lay their egg in there and that little maggot's in there, it just gets gross and gummy and nasty. So really, to avoid this, the best thing you can do without the use of any chemicals or anything is just making sure that you're picking right when the berries are ripe. So just getting them out of there. So on this slide, I have put some educational resources. I have alluded to several of these as I've worked through this presentation, but if small fruit production sounds like something that you are interested in and you want to learn more about how to do it, these resources are just truly excellent. They're all inclusive. They cover just about anything you need to know, from planting, variety selection, pruning, harvest considerations, everything. So the Mid-Atlantic Berry Guide is a great one. There's also the Southeast Regional Caneberry Production Guide, the guide that Dr. Raffi wrote. And then also a website for the Southern Region Small Fruit Consortium, which is really a great resource, not only for growers, but for extension agents working with these crops. And they have lots of resources on there for you to check out, as well as different trainings and things that extension agents can go to. So just a really good resource. I also want to put in a plug for the VSU, Virginia State University's Berry School, that they do every year. This is a really great program that gets you introduction to all kinds of small fruit stuff that you need to know. So really a great program that they do every winter. So look for that. And I know last year they did that virtually. So, and then this slide just kind of covers some of the references that I used to put together this presentation. So if you guys have any questions, I would be happy to answer them at our follow-up Zoom session next week. So I'm looking forward to meeting with you guys. And I realize that I failed to put my email address on here, but if any of you want to reach me that way, my email address is aledwards@vt.edu. Thank you, guys.